You know, when you hear the name Josephine Baker, a very specific image probably pops into your head. But what if I told you that image, that's just the opening act? It's the curtain raiser for one of the most incredible, surprising, and truly heroic stories of the entire 20th century. So let's get into it. And here she is. This is the image. The dazzling star of the Jazz Age. The absolute toast of Paris. This is what made her famous, right? The exotic dancer in that banana skirt, who just completely took Europe by storm and became a symbol of the Roaring Twenties.
This is the performer, the sensation, the icon that artists and thinkers, from Picasso to Hemingway, were all celebrating. This is the legend that's kind of sealed in our collective memory.
But that's the real question, isn't it? Because behind all the feathers and the fame was a woman of just extraordinary courage and conviction. She was leading a life that was so much more complex than her stage persona ever let on. Okay, so this is where this story really takes a turn. She wasn't just an entertainer. She was an intelligence agent, a spy for the French resistance during World War II. She was a passionate leader in the American Civil Rights Movement. And for her heroism, she was given some of France's highest military honors. So how on earth did one person become all of these things? Well, to understand the hero, you've really got to understand the performer first, and the tough road that took her from the American Midwest all the way to the world stage. Her life started a world away from the glamour of Paris. I mean, she was born Frida Josephine MacDonald, and she grew up in serious poverty in St. Louis. She later talked about the absolute terror of watching the 1917 East St. Louis riots, and that event, it really shaped her. It fueled her lifelong fight against racial injustice. But her rise, it was meteoric. After getting her start on Broadway, she found her real home in France. Paris gave her the freedom and the adoration that America just denied her. She became a superstar, a movie icon, and eventually a French citizen. She even famously said, "I have two loves, my country and Paris." And her fame was just immense. It wasn't just popular appeal. The biggest names in culture were absolutely captivated. I mean, when Ernest Hemingway calls you the most sensational woman anyone ever saw, you know you've made a pretty big impact. And that fame, that would become her greatest weapon. So this is where we move, from the stage into the shadows. When World War II broke out, Josephine Baker was recruited for a new and way more dangerous role. Her celebrity became the perfect cover. Think about it. As this internationally famous entertainer, she had the perfect excuse to travel all across Europe and go to all these high society parties. No one, and I mean no one, would ever suspect the glamorous star was actually a spy. Her methods were literally straight out of a spy movie. She would go to these embassy parties, charming Axis officials, and all the while she'd be gathering intelligence on everything from airfields to troop locations. Then she would smuggle this critical information back to the Allies, sometimes written in invisible ink on her sheet music or even pinned inside her underwear. And this wasn't some minor contribution. After the war, General Charles de Gaulle himself made her a Chevalier of the Legion of Honor. France saw her as what she was, a true war hero. But her fight against tyranny didn't just end when the war did. Her battle against fascism in Europe just flowed right into an even more intense battle against racism back in America. When she came back to the United States, she used her stardom as leverage. She flat out refused to perform in any venue that segregated its audiences, and because of that, she forced clubs from Miami to Las Vegas to integrate. She was breaking down color barriers one contract at a time. And her activism really hit a peak right here. In 1963, she flew back to the U.S. to speak at the March on Washington. And get this, she showed up in her French resistance uniform, with all her medals pinned to it, and stood right next to Martin Luther King Jr. as the only woman officially scheduled to speak to that massive crowd. In her powerful speech, she laid it all out. She told the world why she had to leave America just to find some dignity. She told them she could go into palaces and meet with presidents all over the world, but in the country where she was born, she couldn't even get a cup of coffee at a hotel, and the injustice of it all, she said, just made her mad. So, after fighting for France and for civil rights, her next battle was for an ideal. She decided she was going to build a model for a better world, and she started with her own family. This was her personal project to prove her ideals could work. She started adopting children from all over the globe, creating a family she called her Rainbow Tribe.
Her whole goal was to show the world that people of different races, religions, and nationalities could live together as brothers and sisters.
In total, she adopted 12 children. Her chateau in France became their home, and it was kind of a living experiment in racial harmony, a little version of the world that she dreamed of. And then, nearly 50 years after her death, her adopted country gave her its absolute highest tribute. She was inducted into the Panthéon, the final resting place for France's greatest national heroes. She is the first Black woman and only the sixth woman ever to receive this incredible honor. So that's what we're left with. The dancer in the banana skirt? That gave her the platform. The spy? That gave her the medals. The activist? That gave her a voice in history. But maybe all those roles were just different costumes for the exact same character. A woman who simply refused to accept the world as it was.